This video is documenting the prediction that the Toronto Blue Jays baseball team will pitch the third no-hitter in World Series history in specifically Game 5 on October 29th, 2025 against the Los Angeles Dodgers. And also that famous singer-songwriter Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel will slip and fall and severely injure his head on October 30th. And the first news of this will be reported on October 31st. And then he is predicted to die from his head injury on November 5th, 2025. The date that this video is posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. All right, welcome. This video is predicting that the Toronto Blue Jays baseball team will pitch a no-hitter against the Los Angeles Dodgers in specifically Game 5 of this year's World Series on October 29th, 2025. If you're not a baseball fan, no-hitters are very rare. In fact, there have only been 2 other no-hitters in World Series history. This is predicted to be the third no-hitter in World Series history, and it's also predicted that this will be 3 days before it is predicted that the Blue Jays will win their third World Series title. The date that this video is posted on the social media platform you are watching it on proves this is being predicted ahead of time. It is not possible to change the date of a post date of a video after the fact. Even if it were possible, I have no idea. I do not have any inside connections at YouTube or any of the other social media platforms, let alone all of them. But also, this email here, as you can see, is time-stamped for October 27th. So this too also proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time. And so does this forensic notes PDF document that I'll also include in this video. And you can look that up for yourself to learn about what a forensic notes document is and how it confirms the date of the composition of the document. And so this prediction is being made ahead of time. No-hitters are extremely rare, and I'm predicting this for specifically Game 5. When it comes to pass this prediction, it'll prove all of the things that I'm about to explain, and also all of the other things that are explained on this channel. And I know far better than anyone the reason and purpose for this prediction that is from God. It is to prove the things that I am saying. Case closed. So let's get into what I wrote here regarding this prediction. So this email is documenting the prediction that the Toronto Blue Jays will pitch a no-hitter against the Los Angeles Dodgers in Game 5 of the World Series on October 29th, 2025. It is now believed that the reason God is pointing to Game 5 is not that the Blue Jays will win their third World Series title on this date, but that it will be the date of the third no-hitter thrown in World Series history. Okay, so the video I produced yesterday was talking about how I believed yesterday that the reason God was pointing to this Game 5 is that the Blue Jays would win 3 games in a row to win their third World Series in history. But it is not the case anymore. And as I wrote here, this realization came before the beginning of Game 3 today. And currently, as I'm writing this, the score is tied. In other words, this change in the prediction is not the result of the prediction of the Jays winning 3 games in a row no longer being possible. They still could win 3 games in a row, but I don't think they will. But it hasn't been ruled out yet. Because again, this prediction is being composed, this is written before the beginning of the game. It is also recognized that God is pointing to Game 7. And so the Blue Jays are predicted to win their third World Series title in Game 7, okay? Now, that said, I'm going to read some more of what I wrote today, and then after this will be a recording that I made yesterday off of what I wrote yesterday. And all of the analysis from yesterday is extremely profound, extremely important, and still 100% valid. It's just that it won't be the day that the Blue Jays will win or predicted to win their third World Series. It's the day in which it is predicted that there will be, pitched by the Blue Jays, the third no-hitter in World Series history. And so as you'll see, all of the analysis involves this number 3. And again, it'll be the day that the third interstellar object reaches perihelion. The big symbolic date for a comet is the perihelion, the day in which it is closest to the sun. Okay, so it's very simple. All of the analysis from yesterday is still amazing and profound and extremely important and must be heard. But it is not because it's just a simple tweaking of the analysis. It will not be because of the Blue Jays winning their third World Series. It'll be because of the third no-hitter pitched by the Blue Jays in World Series history. Okay? So it's very straightforward. Now, that's not complicated if you are a reasonable person. Now, when the prediction comes to pass, the wise person will recognize that every minute of every video on this channel must be watched, including, like I'm saying, the rest of this video that will come after this discussion about this third no-hitter in history. And in this following discussion after this, I will talk about the Blue Jays winning their third title, but just take that out and insert third no-hitter pitched. And all of the rest of the analysis is amazing and is still the same. Okay? All right. Now, this also applies to the other Blue Jays videos that I've made in recent days. The first one I made was back before the Jays had even beaten the Yankees in the divisional series. I recognized back then that the Blue Jays would win their third World Series this year, and I recognized back then that God was pointing to Game 5. And so there's that video, there's the original video, and then after that, I also made another video talking about the possibility that the reason why God is pointing to Game 5 is that there will be a collision between one or two Blue Jays between each other or the outfield wall, which will result in a head injury. I no longer think that that's necessary or even that possible. But the point is that each of these other videos that speak of the connections from other prophetic signs throughout God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel, these other connections from other signs and the analysis is also 100% still correct. Right? Because the theme of the no-hitter is the same theme as hitting one's head, for example, which also again ties into Paul Simon and the prediction that he will hit his head. Okay, and again, way back before the Jays beat the Yankees in the original video, that's a profound video that must be watched. It's still talking about how God is pointing to this Game 5. It's just become clearer over time as to why God is pointing to Game 5. And so I'm not going to repeat all of the other information. It's in the other two, or I think just two other videos. You need to watch them. They're equally as important as this video, even though the titles might not seem that relevant because it's talking about a collision that, might not happen, or that the Jays would win the World Series in Game 5. And also, by the way, the Brewers. I also explained in the other video why it was originally believed that the Jays would be playing the Brewers this year, because it was 4 years after the prophetic games, which I'll talk about in this video, involving the Brewers and the Blue Jays on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, which was 4 years ago, which is why the Dodgers beat the Brewers this year 4-0. And 4 years ago, they were wearing number 44. The Brewers players, all of them were wearing number 44 on their sleeves. And so that's all explained in the other videos, okay? So, but the point is again, even though there's a video titled or talking about how the Jays will play the Brewers and beat them in Game 5, it's all still true. All of the analysis is still correct. It's just a little bit tweaked. What I mean is that all of the other connections to what God is doing, they're all still valid. You need to watch it because it is through these connections. God doesn't do these for any old reason at all, that God is able to tell these stories. He's telling these stories which reveal and contain essential, extremely important information and knowledge that everyone needs to know. This is the reason for these predictions. Furthermore, it's not for simply you to go, oh, cool, neat. You were able to know this ahead of time. That's pretty cool. That's not what this is all about. There's a purpose for all of this, including the other predictions that are explained in the other videos that through their thumbnail may not seem relevant and may not seem like you need to watch it. But I'll repeat it. The wise person, when this prediction comes to pass, will recognize that they need to watch every single minute of every video on this channel. The third no-hitter in World Series history will be pitched by the Toronto Blue Jays. On October 29th, 2025, the Los Angeles Dodgers will not have one hit in the game. If you don't know baseball, that's what a no-hitter is. It's when the pitching team doesn't allow a single hit throughout the entire game. This third no-hitter in World Series history that will be pitched by the Toronto Blue Jays will be exactly 333 weeks after a Major League Sports team representing Toronto won a championship. That was the last time. Okay, this third no-hitter by the Blue Jays, which I again thought would be the day they would win the World Series, exactly 333 weeks after the Toronto Raptors won the NBA Finals, the last time a team from Toronto won the championship. But instead, it won't be the day that the Blue Jays will win their third title. It'll be the day that the Blue Jays pitch the third no-hitter in World Series history, which will be 3 days before they win or predicted to win their third World Series. Okay? It's very simple. In other words, the Raptors win still connects with 333 weeks and 3 days to the third win of the Blue Jays in World Series history. Okay. Now that day that the Raptors won, incidentally, was June 13th, 2019. Barack Obama attended Game 2 of this 2019 NBA Finals in Toronto on the date June 2nd, 2019. June 2nd, 2019 was exactly the 276th composite number of months since the first and only time a Blue Jays pitcher threw a no-hitter on September 2nd, 1990. Okay, now I forgot to mention that, this 276 number here is very, very relevant because it's the first of all, it's 345 months. But God does this frequently. He'll use this number to hint at another number, which is that this number is the 276th composite number, which means non-prime number. 276 is a number that appears in the Bible. It's an unusually specific number, one of 3 unusually specific numbers in the Bible that are prophetic, all of which incidentally are triangular numbers. And this is the 23rd triangular number. And that's very relevant because Obama attended a basketball game here on this date, and Obama wore jersey number 23 when he played high school basketball. And to date, his high school basketball jersey was auctioned off for the highest ever price for a jersey, including all professional sports jerseys. If I'm mistaken about that, it's the highest basketball jersey. But I think it's all jerseys, but I could be wrong. It could only apply to basketball. Well, anyway, so in other words, this identifies Barack Obama, and it connects with the date that Obama was at a basketball game. Now, the date 9/2 hints at 9 1 + 1, and therefore 9/11. On the 20th anniversary of 9/11, when 2 110-story towers were struck by Flight 11 with a crew of 11. The Toronto Blue Jays played 2 games in the same day and scored 11 runs in each game, which hinted at the 2 towers of 110 stories. This was on the anniversary, the 20th anniversary of 9/11. The following day, the Blue Jays scored another 2 times 11 runs in their game. Just to confirm the matter. Now, the day after that, the stock exchange in Toronto closed at 20,666. And again, this was the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And pitchers on the pitch, well, I'm getting ahead. So also on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, the same day that the Blue Jays had their prophetic game, in which they played 2 games with 11 runs in each game, 2 Milwaukee Brewers, and again, it was the anniversary of when 2 planes struck 2 towers, 2 Milwaukee Brewers, and it was the 20th anniversary, 2 Milwaukee Brewers pitchers pitched a combined no-hitter for the second no-hitter thrown in Brewers history. And it was on this 20th anniversary of 9/11. And this was the record-setting 9th no-hitter of the season. And the pitcher's jersey numbers summed up to 110, which hinted at 9/11 and also when 110 stories collapsed. Now I'm just going to play a brief clip explaining why it is that God pairs the numbers 9 and 110 together to point to 9/11. And then I'll be right back. Jesus' official arrival into Jerusalem and first coming was on the 10th day of the first month in the Hebrew calendar. This is 110, and this hints at the number 110. In the book of Joshua, the date on which the Hebrews crossed over the Jordan River and officially entered the Promised Land was also on the 10th day of the first month, which is 110 and hints at the number 110. Jesus' first coming is symbolized by the number 110. This is why on 9/11, the 2 towers that collapsed were each 110 stories high. The collapse of 2 towers that were 110 floors was symbolism for Jesus' second coming. In the book of Joshua in the Bible, Joshua died at the age of 110. Joshua led the Hebrews around the security walls of the ancient city of Jericho before they collapsed in judgment. On 9/11, the Twin Towers, which were 110 stories high, collapsed, engendering a small earthquake that cracked the foundation of Federal Hall, where George Washington was inaugurated, on Wall Street. President George Washington was a founding father, and his inauguration as the first president was a symbolic founding of the nation. The cracking of the foundation of Federal Hall on Wall Street on 9/11 symbolized America's foundation in God being cracked. This is because after Washington's inauguration at Federal Hall, he then walked down Wall Street to Trinity Chapel, where he consecrated the nation to God, saying that if the nation were to ever turn away from God, it would lose its blessings. After 9/11, Trinity Chapel was called the Miracle Chapel, as it was the only building at Ground Zero to have survived. It did not even suffer a broken window due to the 70-year-old sycamore tree that was uprooted as it sheltered the chapel from the falling debris. In commemoration of this sycamore tree outside the chapel, today there is a huge bronze statue of its roots. In other words, through the 9/11 events, God was pointing to Trinity Chapel and Washington's covenantal consecration of the nation to God at Trinity Chapel. Wall Street is named after the original 9-foot-high wall of security that the Dutch built to keep the British and the Indians out. The collapse of 110 floors that cracked the foundation of Federal Hall on Wall Street, which is named after a 9-foot-high security wall, hints at 9/11 and points to Joshua, who died at 110, and the Hebrews that marched around the walls of security before they collapsed in judgment. 110 floors and the 9-foot-high wall of security that was Wall Street points to George Washington's march down Wall Street to Trinity Chapel that symbolized a covenantal relationship between America and God. To this effect, Washington's march down Wall Street with the New York Stock Exchange, the building that symbolizes America's financial strength, located on one side of the street, and Federal Hall, the building that symbolizes America's governmental and institutional strength on the other side, also pointed to the cutting rights ritual practiced in ancient Israel that was used in Abraham's and God's ritual walk in their covenant that is described in Genesis 15. A covenant that symbolizes Washington's walk down Wall Street and his covenantal consecration of the nation to God at Trinity Chapel. There are only two nations in the history of the world that were founded not on ethnicity or territory or language, but were founded solely for God, Israel and America. In every daily Bible that is divided into 365 readings, a portion of the Bible for each day of the year, on every September 11th, everyone that reads this standard 365-day Bible reads the passage in the book of Isaiah, chapter 9, verse 11, which is the judgment warning on ancient Israel, which was a raid on ancient Israel by the world's first recorded terrorists, the ancient Assyrians. And the terrorists on 9/11 were from the same part of the world. The Assyrians raided the northern kingdom of Israel first, and then later the southern kingdom of Judah was destroyed, which is why the terrorists on 9/11 hit the North Tower first, followed 17 minutes later by the South Tower. And this Isaiah 9:11 passage includes a mention of collapsed buildings and uprooted sycamore trees. On the morning after 9/11, Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle gave a speech to the world regarding the events on 9/11. He quoted the passage in Isaiah 9:11, not realizing it was a judgment warning on the ancient Jews. He quoted how, after the raid by the Assyrians, the Hebrews did not repent to God, but instead vowed defiantly to rebuild and become stronger than before. And so, like the ancient Jews, America did not repent after the judgment warning, and instead defied God even more. And so, like ancient Israel, America will now be destroyed. This is why, in God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, he frequently pairs together the number 110 and the number 9. Both of these numbers symbolize God's judgment on the nation, and paired together, these numbers point to the big judgment warning that was 9/11. As well, these numbers paired together in God's signs and connections serve as a witness confirmation that the perceived signs and connections are from God. After the judgment warning of 9/11, America was given a period of grace to repent and turn back to God, or else judgment destruction. In the Bible, a 20-year period symbolizes a complete period of waiting. Jacob waited 20 years to get possession of his wives and property. The children of Israel waited 20 years to be freed of Jabin, the king of Canaan, when they were freed from bondage by Deborah and Barak. The Ark of the Covenant waited 20 years in Kiriath Jearim, and Solomon spent 20 years building his home and the house of God. On the 20th anniversary of the buildings that collapsed on 9/11 was the sudden collapse of America's presence in Afghanistan, and the iconic scene of this was the U.S. Air Force plane leaving the airport in Afghanistan, and the big number on the side of its plane is 1109, which hints at 110 and 9. Okay, and so this second no-hitter in Brewers history is why the Toronto Blue Jays will pitch their second no-hitter in their franchise history in Game 5 on October 29th. Again, this points back to when the Blue Jays had their prophetic game on the same day that the Brewers pitched their second no-hitter in franchise history. And this game, this day, 9/11 in 2021, will be exactly 6 times 6 times 6 weeks before it is predicted that the Blue Jays will win the World Series. Okay? All right. So that's where we're headed here. This is just confirmation, this prophetic significance of the Blue Jays games and the 2 games and the 2 pitchers that pitched the second no-hitter in Brewers history. It's all connecting to the Blue Jays and their predicted second no-hitter in their history, but will also be during a World Series game. Okay? Making it the 3rd no-hitter in World Series history. And so the second no-hitter in Blue Jays history and the 3rd no-hitter in World Series history hints at the number 23. And this is predicted to be the 23rd triangular number, gives us the composite number of months exactly after number 23. Obama attended a championship game in Toronto. See how it's all so amazing. The Blue Jays, 2 11-run games. The Blue Jays' 2 11-run games. And the Brewers' second no-hitter in their franchise history. That was pitched by two pitchers whose jersey numbers summed to 110. Was exactly 110 weeks after the Blue Jays and Orioles played each other and scored a total of 11 runs in the game. Again, 110 hints at 11. Okay? And it was on the anniversary of the 9/11 and the 110 stories that collapsed. Okay. The Blue Jays and Orioles are types of birds. This game that I'm talking about 110 weeks before the 2 games of 11 runs each and the pitcher's jerseys numbers that added up to 110. Okay, this 110 weeks exactly back is a game between the birds, but it was on the birthday, August 4th, 2019, of the 44th president. And on this day, 4 people died in a blackout in Jakarta, Indonesia, where the 44th president grew up for 4 years. Okay, 4 years, typo there. Also on this same birthday of the president, from 2009 to 17, a mass shooter killed 9 people and injured 17 people in the 17th state, which incidentally was 44 days, as in the 44th president, who was president from 2009 to 17 before Constitution Day on the date 9/17, because the 44th president was the unconstitutional president, when 9 barges broke free and damaged the I-10 highway, which hints at 110, making that a pairing of 9 and 110. And it was also, of course, Noah's flood symbolism, the barges. Anyway, back to this date, though, when the Orioles and Blue Jays played on the Antichrist 44th president's birthday, this was exactly 36 years. Now, 36 hints at 666, because for one thing, it is 3 6s. It hints at 3 6s. It's also 6 times 6, and also 2 times 18, which is 6 plus 6 plus 6. And the 36th triangular number, which in a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 36th row is 666. And 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way up to 36 equals 666. Okay? And so, this prophetic Obama birth date, like I just explained, was exactly 36 years after and that's also, by the way, 9 plus 9 plus 9 years, after the 31-year-old outfielder wearing number 31. 31 is the 11th prime number, which pairs with this 9 plus 9 plus 9 years. Wearing number 31 for the team from the 11th state. Another pairing of 11 with the 9s. Threw a ball and hit a seagull bird in the stadium of the Blue Jays, which are birds, that died on the field. This player's name is Dave Winfield. Hall of Famer, very famous player in the 1980s. Seagulls are a protected species of birds, and Winfield was arrested by the police. It was an international scandal. And I know this and remember this because I grew up in Toronto, a big Blue Jays fan. This was when I was a kid. And in other words, God designed my life for this video that you are watching. Now, this day that Winfield hit a bird strike, was on the 22nd birthday of the Antichrist. And the number 22 in God's signs symbolizes the mark of the Antichrist. Because the inverse of the mark described in the book of Ezekiel would have been a Tav mark, and the Tav letter is the last and 22nd letter, and the mark of the Antichrist is described in the last and 22nd book out of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. Also, the mark of the Antichrist alters a person's chromosomes, and a chromosome has 2 arms, and they come in pairs, and so 2 and 2. Okay, now, this bird strike by Dave Winfield in the outfield, this connected to the day the Blue Jays scored 22 runs, and it was on the 22nd birthday, right? This Winfield bird strike was on the 22nd birthday of the Antichrist, and it connects, as I have explained, to when the Jays scored 22 runs in one day. Now, 4 divided by 9 is equal to 0.44. The Winfield bird strike on the 44th president's birthday was exactly 4 times 9 years, which since at 0.44, the 44th president, before the Blue Jays and Orioles birds scored a total of 11 runs, exactly 110 weeks before the Blue Jays scored 11 runs in each of their 2 games. And the 2 Brewers pitchers pitched the second no-hitter in their franchise's history while wearing jersey numbers that summed to 110. In God's signs, pitchers on the pitching mound symbolize the Antichrist on the Temple Mount in Bible prophecy. At the time of the combined no-hitter, all of the Brewers players were wearing number 44 patches on their sleeves because earlier that year, the home run king, which hints at the Antichrist king, died after taking the SHOT, mark of the Antichrist, 6 plus 6 plus 6 days earlier. And of course, the mark in Bible prophecy is symbolized by 666. These connections that go back to Winfield's bird strike on the Antichrist's 22nd birthday are why the Toronto Blue Jays are predicted to pitch their second no-hitter in franchise history on October 29th, 2025. The predicted third no-hitter in World Series history will be 3 days before the predicted third World Series title for the Blue Jays, which are birds. This will be 3 days and 333 weeks exactly after the last time Toronto won a championship. Obama attended the 2019 NBA Finals in Toronto on June 2nd, 2019, exactly 3 years after a Thunderbird jet crashed immediately after flying over Obama during his commencement speech for the Air Force in Falcon Stadium at 4900 Stadium Boulevard. The Blue Jays are playing in their 49th season, which is 7 times 7, and their history began back in the year 77. A no-hitter by the Blue Jays hints at a plane crash due to being hit by a bird. A no-hitter by the Blue Jays birds hints at a plane crash due to being hit by a bird. Exactly 144 weeks, which is a number that symbolizes the rapture, which hints at the Raptors, Toronto Raptors basketball team. After the Blue Jays predicted no-hitter, it is predicted that there will be a plane crash involving the 49th vice president that will be due to a bird strike. The predicted death of Kamala Harris and Newsom in a plane crash due to a bird strike on August 2nd, 2028 will be 3 months, as in hinting at the third no-hitter in the World Series history before the election. And this crisis will clear the way for Michelle Robinson Obama to become the 49th president. Okay, let me just expand here. It's predicted that Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris will be running mates in the upcoming election, and they're predicted to die in a plane crash due to a bird strike 3 months before the election, and therefore in this moment of crisis, the Democrat Party will nominate Michelle Robinson Obama to become the 49th president, which is what is being hinted at with Kamala Harris, the 49th vice president, and the 49th season of the Birds, the Blue Jays, in which they are predicted to win their third World Series, which ends at the 3 months. Now, she will make Barack Obama her vice president, and then he will serve a third term after Michelle is predicted to step down. The plane crash is predicted to be in the outfield of the Cardinals, which are another bird, Busch Stadium, as in Falcon Stadium back here, right? At 4900 Stadium Boulevard, which also hints at the 49th president, Michelle Obama, and vice president, which will be struck by a bird. Okay, so their plane crash, the 49th president, is predicted to crash into the outfield of the Major League Baseball stadium of the Cardinals, Busch Stadium, in the area code 314, which will hint at the burning bush in Exodus 3:14. Paul Simon sang Mrs. Robinson, his song, in the outfield of Yankee Stadium. And Winfield Birdstrike played for the Yankees. And he was the outfielder, and he struck the bird in the outfield, which is why their plane will crash in the outfield due to a bird strike. It all goes back to Winfield's bird strike. The song Mrs. Robinson contains a lyric about Joe DiMaggio, which is why Paul Simon sang in the stadium after his death. And Joe DiMaggio collided with players in the outfield and suffered head injuries. 2 days after the predicted second no-hitter in Blue Jays history, it is predicted that it will be reported on October 31st that Paul Simon has slipped and fallen and struck his head. Slip sliding away. But that's also symbolic of a hit. He will hit his head. It'll be a strike of the head, like a bird strike, which is why it'll be just 2 days after the second no-hitter in the Blue Jays Birds history. The Blue Jays' 2 games in which they scored 11 runs in each game on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, when 2 110-story towers collapsed, is exactly 6 times 6 times 6 weeks before it is predicted that the Blue Jays will win their third World Series. And I just talked about how this connects to the predicted third term for Obama. The name Barack is equal to 6 times 6 times 6 in English gematria, and he was born on the 6 times 6 times 6th day of the year, calendar year. Okay, so this Blue Jays' 2 games in which they scored 11 runs in each game on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, when 2 110-story towers collapsed, as in 2 games, 11 runs each, is exactly 6 times 6 times 6 weeks before it is predicted that the Blue Jays will win their third World Series. And this will be 3 days after it is predicted that the Blue Jays will pitch the third no-hitter in World Series history on October 29th, which will be exactly 156 weeks, and 156th prime number is 911, 9/11, after the last no-hitter in World Series history on November 2nd, 2022, that was pitched by 4 pitchers. Okay? So the exact number of weeks between these predicted no-hitters in World Series history is 156, which hints at 9/11, and that's relevant because the Blue Jays hint at 9/11 because of their games on the anniversary of 9/11, 2 games and 11 runs each. Now, this no-hitter that was pitched by 4 pitchers was exactly 4 + 4 + 4 months after player number 44's team, the Atlanta Braves, won the World Series on November 2nd, 2021, which was 9 months and 11 days after he died. Number 44's team won the World Series exactly 9 plus 10 plus 10 months after the 44th president attended Game 2 of the NBA Finals in Toronto. And again, it's predicted that the Blue Jays will pitch their second no-hitter in Toronto history. It's all circular. It all connects. The second no-hitter in World Series history on November 2nd, 2022 is 300% of a calendar year before it is predicted that the Toronto Blue Jays will win their third World Series title. And this will be 3 days after it is predicted that the Blue Jays will pitch the third no-hitter in World Series history and the second no-hitter in franchise history. This hints at 32. Again, the second no-hitter in World Series history, which was on November 2nd, 2022, is 300% of a calendar year before it is predicted that the Blue Jays will win their third World Series title. And this will be 3 days after it is predicted that the Blue Jays will pitch the third no-hitter in World Series history. And it will be, again, the second no-hitter in their franchise history, which ends at 32. And the name Obama is equal to 32 in simple English gematria. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. And Obama wore jersey number 23 in high school basketball, because it could be interpreted the other way around, of course. The second no-hitter is also the third no-hitter in World Series history. It's also a 23. The predicted third no-hitter in World Series history to be pitched on October 29th will be the date of perihelion of the third interstellar object. And this will hint at the coming hit of an asteroid on the world in the year 2030. And as I'll explain in the rest of this video, this predicted third no-hitter in World Series history was 3 days after the two U.S. military aircraft crashed into the sea 30 minutes apart. Now, like I said at the beginning, the rest of this video was recorded yesterday when it was believed that the reason why God is pointing to this date, October 29th, is that this would be the day that the Jays would win the third World Series title after winning 3 games in a row. I no longer believe that. I know now that it'll be the date of the third no-hitter pitched in World Series history by the Blue Jays. Like I said, the rest of the analysis is 100% correct. Still, just delete third World Series win for this date and insert third World Series no-hitter for this date, and everything is the same. Okay, and it's extremely important and must be watched. And it's very interesting too. Extremely interesting. It's going to get much more interesting. In fact, this was just a warm-up, actually. Okay, welcome. This video is truly profound. It is so profound and important. Make sure you watch all of this video. Make sure you watch it all the way to the end, because the information and revelation from God increases as it goes. The insight becomes more and more profound and important as it goes, as the progressive insights build on themselves to reach the important insight that God is communicating through what I'm about to explain. Okay, so just make sure you watch all of the video and make sure that you watch this video. But the wise person, anyway, will recognize that when this prediction comes to pass, which is that Paul Simon will slip and fall and severely injure his head on October 30th, and then the news of this will be first reported on October 31st. When this prediction comes to pass, the wise person will recognize that every minute of every video on this channel should be watched. That said, the big prediction in this video is that the Toronto Blue Jays will win their third World Series. Not only that, though, they will win the World Series in Game 5. Currently, as of October 26th, right now, as I'm recording this video, the World Series is tied at 1-1. If the Blue Jays are going to win this World Series in Game 5, it means that they will win 3 games in a row. And that is what is being predicted right now. Okay, the date that this video was posted proves this prediction is being made ahead of time. Okay, you can see that. I do not have inside access, if that were even possible. I have no idea, but I do not have inside access to a YouTube employee or an employee for another platform that you are watching this on to be able to change the date that it is posted after the fact. Okay, so this post date of October 26th proves that this prediction is being made before not only the Blue Jays win the World Series in Game 5, but before they win 3 games in a row. Because the first of these 3 games will be played on the 27th. So in other words, the Blue Jays are predicted to win against the Los Angeles Dodgers on October 27th, 28th, and 29th. Today is October 26th. We can also prove this to you through the timestamp on this email here, okay? As you can see, the timestamp is October 26th in the afternoon. All right? Now, as you will see, the rest of the email thread, of course, is composed after this particular email. So, well, actually, that doesn't say anything. What I'll do then is I'll confirm each until I make the prediction in an actual email here, typed out. I'll continue to present to you the post date or the timestamp on each of the emails, okay? All right, so that's what's being predicted. Now, again, the Blue Jays are predicted to win their 3rd World Series World Series in history, and it'll be after they win 3 games in a row. And there is a very important reason for this rhyme of the number 3 here, as I will explain. Well, I'll just add this right now. The date that the Blue Jays are predicted to win their 3rd World Series after winning 3 games in a row will be the date, October 29th, of the perihelion of the 3rd interstellar object in space. Perihelion is an important date in a comet, or in this case, an interstellar comet. It means that it is the date that it is closest to the sun. By the way, the fact that it's even coming to the sun is in itself interesting because it doesn't have an orbit around the sun. It's all from God, as you'll see. This 3rd interstellar object is extremely important. You have no idea. You need to watch this because you need to know when the asteroid is going to hit Earth. And that'll be proven with all that I'm about to say, okay? I'm jumping ahead, but that's what's going on here. That's why the Blue Jays are going to win their 3rd World Series on the day of the perihelion of the 3rd interstellar object. It's huge. It's very important. And by the way, that'll be in the year 2030. That's why the 3's here. I'm really jumping ahead now. So, because all of this has come at the end of the day for me, but I'm about to go through with you the information as it came to me and my friend. Okay, let's begin here with what my friend wrote. So just, bear with me here. Be patient. Because as I said, it's going to build on itself. The information is going to get more and more relevant and important. So, okay, we're just going to lay the groundwork here. We're just going to get started, okay? The World Series, when we use the WS in these emails, it stands for World Series, okay? Is in part hinting at Kobe Bryant. Because he played for Los Angeles and scored 81 points in his 666th game against the Toronto Raptors, okay? So this World Series is being played between Toronto and Los Angeles. And we have this record-scoring game. Now, it wasn't the highest. I believe it was the 2nd highest scoring game in history. The first one was, I believe, 100 points. Got to take a breather here. Got to relax a little bit, okay? Because we've got a long way to go. This is a marathon here, and I started sprinting. Didn't mean to do that. Now, that's another subject, and I need to keep on subject. I need to, just since I brought it up though, the 100 points by Wilt Chamberlain and the 81 points, well, never mind. Well, it hints at the number that's equivalent to the name Barack Obama in English gematria, 181. All right, but it's also the 42nd prime number. 42, the number symbolizing the Antichrist. Well, that's enough. Okay. But the point is that the game that Bryant played in was between Los Angeles and Toronto. And this World Series has been between Los Angeles and Toronto. And that's why my friend started this off by suggesting that this current World Series is in part hinting back to Kobe Bryant, which it is, as you'll see. Now, 81 points is also interesting because it is a number that symbolizes 9/11, which was the warning of judgment for America, including of the arrival of the Antichrist, the basketball president, the 44th president. On 9/11, the fourth plane hit the ground at a 40-degree angle and created a 40-acre pit, 40 plus 40 miles outside of Pittsburgh, and killed 44 people. So God, way back then, was identifying the coming Antichrist. And by the way, this Antichrist was also involved in the ceremony when the last beam, the highest beam on the new One World Tower was raised up. And he signed it. So I'm getting off subject again. Let's get back. So it was the 666th game. This is the number in prophecy that symbolizes the Antichrist. 81 is a 9/11 number because 9 divided by 11 is 0.8181 into infinity. And the first plane had had 81 passengers. Okay, and 81 is 9 times 9, and the first plane had a crew of 11. So that was a 9 and 11. The second plane had a crew of 9 and 56 passengers. 5 plus 6 equals 11, and that also hinted at 9/11. Now, I think the day the Blue Jays advanced to the World Series, sports commentator Bryant Gumbel was rushed to the hospital. So Bryant Gumbel would hint at Kobe Bryant. It was reported today that Bryant Gumbel was seen for the first time since being released from the hospital. Anyway, what this is all leading to also is the coming hospitalization, I assume, of Paul Simon after he severely injures his head, as predicted on October 30th. The news being reported of this on the 31st, and then he is predicted to die on November 5th of his head injury. Okay, a little breather here. Now, this October 26th date, which we'll be focused on this video, was exactly 69 months, or exactly 2,100 days, or exactly 300 weeks after the death of Kobe Bryant in a helicopter crash. Okay, so that's important here, as I'll explain. So I'm not going to explain it twice. I'll just keep going because I'm about to explain why that's all important in a minute. As I wrote. It doesn't help that I just ate lunch also, by the way. But the show must go on because there's so much to do, so much video production to do, and so little time. Okay, so the Toronto equals the Raptors, which is symbolic of the rapture, which is Christianity's most preposterous idea, but it's when the faithful of the Lord are predicted to be raptured or rescued, or if you will, disappear and be with the Lord in heaven and then return with him in their resurrected bodies at the second coming. So rapture hints at rapture. So Raptors, I should say, the Toronto Raptors hint at rapture, okay? Now, the Toronto Raptors play and so do the Toronto Blue Jays, right next to the big CN Tower, which is in itself symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist, because it looks like a giant needle. Okay, and that's what the mark of the Antichrist is. It's the SHOT. It's the thing. I'm going to really tone down the voice here, okay? So just bear with me, because this really is a marathon. So, but the tower, the CN Tower God is using, and the city of Toronto itself, as a Tower of Babel. Just for example, prophetically here, when the Blue Jays hit a home run this year in these playoffs, each home run hitter gets to sport the jacket that they share. It's like a Masters tournament jacket, if you will. They wear it, right, in celebration. Now, on the back of the jacket, which is shown to the cameras, is the name of the country for where each player is from. And there's like 30 different countries on that, on the back of that jacket, which is totally emblematic of the city of Toronto, which is the city I'm from, if you could call it a city. It is a city, but it is this Tower of Babel city, because it's not really a people. It's like the Tower of Babel. It's made up of people from all over the world. Okay? And so it's truly a city of the Tower of Babel. And it's just interesting that the jacket itself symbolizes this, because they've got this. It's all about celebrating how everyone in Canada isn't from Canada. I mean, that's the sad thing about what Canada has become. It's become an empty box into which is to be stuffed all the world's countries. It's not a country anymore. It's a Tower of Babel. Anyway, this is also confirmation for the 144 weeks connection, which we've been talking about in prior videos. Okay, one of the big reasons why it was recognized back during Game 3 or after Game 3 of the Yankees series, before the Blue Jays beat the Yankees, that this Game 3 was revealing that the Toronto Blue Jays would win their third World Series this year. And that, again, is because in that game, Aaron Judge, a man God is using for his judgment signs, hit a 3-run home run in Game 3. Okay? And then later, on that note, it was learned in the next, because the Jays ended up beating the Yankees, as was predicted at that moment. And by the way, you can go back and watch that video that was posted before the Blue Jays beat the Yankees. That video predicts that the Blue Jays will win their third World Series in Game 5. Okay, it was predicted way back then. Specifically also Game 5, all right? Now the reason is because this Game 5 is exactly 144 weeks before the predicted plane crash on August 2nd, 2028. That will be the result of a bird strike, and the Toronto Blue Jays are birds. Okay, now in the American League Championship Series, the playoff series after they beat the Yankees, the Blue Jays won the series with a home run. And it turns out that there is a video on YouTube put out by Major League Baseball on their channel about the 3 Canada shaking home runs. So there's been these 3 home runs in Blue Jays history, all of which won the playoff series. Literally, the home run won the series for the Blue Jays. For example, arguably the most famous home run in World Series history, the last time the Blue Jays won the World Series in 1993. That was a home run that won the World Series. In 2015, Jose Bautista's home run, another extremely famous home run, not just in Blue Jays history, but Major League Baseball history, it won the series, but that was the divisional series. Okay? This year, the American Championship Series, American League Championship Series was won with a home run. So there are 3 different types of playoff series in baseball playoffs: the divisional the divisional, and then the league championship, and then the World Series. All 3 of these different types of series have been won by the Blue Jays with a home run. And in each of those instances, all three of these home runs were 3-run home runs. The home run was a 3-run home run in each case, and there are 3 of them. And they each occurred into 3 different types of series. Okay? Now, again, I recognized that the Blue Jays would win their 3rd World Series this year before they even hit their 3rd series-winning home run. But that was recognized when Aaron Judge hit his home run in the 3rd inning of in Game 3, I mean. And his home run, Aaron Judge's, against the Blue Jays, was a 3-run home run. And at that time, I didn't recall or know that the other 2 home runs that had already been hit in the Jays playoff series history were 3-run home runs. This didn't come to my attention until I watched that Major League Baseball video later, after the Blue Jays won the American League Championship Series with a 3-run home run. Okay, so anyway, the Judge guy, he hit a 3-run home run in Game 3 against the Blue Jays. And that's when I knew that the Blue Jays would win their 3rd World Series this year. Okay? Okay, and again, it's because of 144 weeks. This Game 5, which is scheduled for October 29th. Back during the Divisional Series playoffs, you could go online and find out the schedule dates for the World Series games. And so I knew that the Jays would win their 3rd World Series this year. And then I looked up the dates of this year's World Series and found that Game 5 is October 29th. And I didn't realize back then that it is also the date of the perihelion, the all-important date of a comet. The 3rd interstellar object's perihelion is this date. The date's predicted that the Jays will win their 3rd World Series. Well, anyway, the reason for the significance of this 144 weeks to this plane crash, oh, and by the way, this plane crash will be hugely consequential because the Democrat Party nominee for the president will be on the plane, Gavin Newsom. And he'll be on the plane with Kamala Harris, incidentally, which will lead to and clear the way for Michelle Obama to be the replacement in an emergency 3 months. It just came to me. 3 months before the election. No kidding. Which will lead to the 3rd term of Barack Obama, because Michelle Obama will make Barack her vice president. And he is the Antichrist, from whom God's faithful will be rescued. And in Bible prophecy, 144 weeks, the number 144, is symbolic of his faithful who will be rescued in the rapture. Hence why the last time that Toronto won a major championship was with the Raptors. And incidentally, Barack Obama attended the NBA Finals that year. And that game that he attended was right next to the Tower of Babel. Now in the Bible, the story in the Tower of Babel includes Nimrod, who is a type for the Antichrist. Okay? Now Toronto beat the team from San Francisco because the first of the 2 Antichrists, and there are 2 of them in Bible prophecy, is Pope Francis, who is predicted to be resurrected in April of 2029. Okay, so we have, with this NBA Finals, God pointing to both of the 2 Antichrists. Now, what I didn't realize until just now, I just checked. I'm going to really tone down the voice, okay? So don't interpret this as like, me not being excited about the information or everything or anything. It's just that this is a marathon, all right? Now, the game that Obama attended was on the 2nd of the month, and it was Game 2. That's because Obama will serve a second presidency. It was June 2nd, 2019. And it was exactly 3 years. He'll serve a third term. But it was game 2. It was actually exactly 3 years after a plane crash, which was the prophetic plane crash when Obama was giving the commencement speech at the Air Force Academy commencement in the Four Corners state that has 4 corners. Okay, so let's just unpack that. Well, first of all, let's explain it more. As he was giving the speech, the Thunderbird's ceremonial jet crashed immediately after flying over Obama. Okay? Now that number of the plane in the squad was number 6. And on that same day, in the 4 times 4th state, the Blue Angels jet crashed, another ceremonial jet. And ceremonial jets, and by the way, I'm going to speak slowly too, which I normally don't do, but I need to. Okay? I need to get through this. So, the Blue Angels jet also crashed on the same day. It was in the 4 times 4th state, but it was also number 6 in its squad. Okay, and the Antichrist's number is 666. Now, this crash was exactly 6 years after something, but I forget what that is. And I tried to look it up yesterday, but I couldn't find it. Anyway, the point is that both of the jets crashed number 6 in their squad. The Blue Angels hints at Obama, the basketball president, whose favorite college basketball team is the Blue Devils. But it also hints at fallen angels. And the coming plane crash with Gavin Newsom on it will be on its way to Los Angeles, which God uses to symbolize fallen angels. Another reason why the Los Angeles Dodgers will be beaten. They will fall on October 29th with the Game 5. Okay, so that's a plane crash, and it's extremely prophetic. Okay, now that plane crash was exactly 3 years before Obama attended Game 2. Well, the name Obama is equal to 32 in simple English gematria. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. But you could easily say as well that his attendance at Game 2 was exactly 3 years after the plane crash. And Obama wore number 23 when he played basketball in high school. And of course, this Game 2 we are talking about is a basketball game, which is of course why he attended. Okay, now 3 years is also 36 months, which is 6 times 6. And that connects to the 2 planes that crashed that were number 6 in their squads. Now 36 is also 2 times 18, which is 6 plus 6 plus 6. It also hints at 3 6s. 36 hints at 3 6s and 666. Also, the 36th triangular number, which in a triangle of numbers, the last number in the 36th row is 666. And 1 plus 2 plus 3 all the way up to 36 equals 666. And of course, the number of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy is 666. But there's 2 Antichrists, and this Game 2 involved the San Francisco team, which hints at Pope Francis. Okay, now, so we've got the connection to the basketball president who wore number 23 with a plane crash. Well, anyway, the predicted consequential plane crash. Oh, and by the way, it was the 4 times 4th state, one of the planes, and the other, Tennessee, and the plane that crashed over Obama was in the 4 corners state that has 4 corners, right? Got 4 corners states. One of them has 4 corners, Colorado, which gives us the 44th president. But God pairs 23 and 44 to confirm his signs and connections. And this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true, and not a product of one's imagination, and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And if we think about it, one simple way in which God would provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 9, 23, and 44. And I know these are the numbers because I have been studying his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections from morning until night for more than full-time hours for more than 7 years. And that's because the building blocks, if you will, with these pairings of numbers, identify the Antichrist, because the vast majority of God's signs identify the Antichrist. And that's the basics, though. Now we're getting into specifics. For example, how he will become the Antichrist, through a plane crash, okay? In other words, years ago, was 2019, it was recognized that God pairs these numbers. But over the years, the information has been building and building, and it's like a puzzle. The more pieces you put into it, the clearer the picture gets, okay? So anyway, God pairs 23 and 44, because the 44th president is the basketball president who wore 23. And so from the plane crash in the 4 times 4th state, and a 4 corners state with 4 corners over Obama, we have this 3 years to game 2, or rather game 2 was actually 3 years after this. So we have a pairing of 23 and 44. Okay, and so that confirms the signs and connections, as I mentioned. Now, okay, so the rapture, the Raptors game that Obama attended on June 2nd is exactly 110 months to August 2nd, 2028, the predicted plane crash. So here we have, like I'm describing, the plane crash in 2016 on June 2nd to June 2nd, 2019, Obama, right? His commencement speech, his attendance, the basketball game, and then another 110 months. Well, that's extremely prophetic because, for one thing, Joshua died at the age of 110 in the Bible. And he led the Israelites around the walls of security of ancient Jericho before they collapsed in God's judgment. And then the Israelites took the promised land, took control of it. Well, also, Joshua led the Israelites. He didn't only die at 110, but he led the Israelites into the promised land on the date 110 in the Hebrew calendar. Jesus also officially entered or arrived in Jerusalem in the triumphal entry on the date 110. Okay, on 9/11, it was 110 stories that collapsed. But there was 2 of them which should set the second coming. Because the 110-story building would hint at the date that Jesus' first coming was officially on. And so therefore 2 of these would be a hint at the second coming. All right. Now, the collapsed 110-story buildings engendered an earthquake that cracked the foundation of Federal Hall. Anyway, we'll just cut it off there. But the walls of security collapsed on Jericho due to an earthquake, according to archaeology. Anyway, what we have here is from the day that player number 23, Barack Obama, was at the prophetic Raptors game, we have 110 months. That gives us a pairing of 11 and 23. And the 1123 is the 188th prime number. And God frequently uses this number 188 and also 1123 to point to the 188th word in Strong's Hebrew Concordance, which is the word woe exclamation mark, used in the Bible in the context of extreme judgment from God. Okay? And that will be the woe. When Gavin Newsom, the Democrat Party nominee, crashes and then is replaced by Michelle Obama, that's a huge woe that's leading to the arrival of the Antichrist. But speaking of 9/11, this 110 months is 9 years and 1 + 1 month. But also, 9/11 was the only other time, was exactly 188 years after the only other time that a foreign enemy attacked the nation's capital. When the British landed at Washington's Mount Vernon estate on 9/11 in 1813, and then proceeded to burn down the Capitol building and the White House, but not before Dolly Madison rescued Washington's portrait. Well, anyway, so you can see here, like I'm saying, the significance of Obama at the basketball game with the Raptors, the last time that the Blue Jays won a major championship. And now I've just demonstrated how the Raptors game connects to the predicted plane crash date, okay? And also, this coming Blue Jays win, which will be, the Raptors was the last time that Toronto won a major sports championship. This also connects to the plane crash date. And the plane will crash due to a bird strike with 144 weeks from the day the Jays are predicted to win. And 144 symbolizes the rapture. And Toronto also symbolizes the rapture through the Raptors. Okay? All right. You see how long it took just to get to this one line here? We've got a long way to go, but hopefully it's interesting, right? Hopefully this information is being received as being profound, because it should be, because it is. By the way, also, I should also mention this. The day that, well, never mind. Okay, so, because I explain it in other videos. Kobe Bryant, let's see. So the name Kobe Bryant is equal to 113. And Bryant was 41 when he died, and Paul Simon was born on the date 10/13 and 41. Okay, all of this is pointing to Paul Simon, like we're saying. Okay. Now, in 2022, on March 26th, there was a Raptors basketball game. I forget who they were playing. I'm sure it was important. And I'm sure I'm missing something that could be added to all of this. It's just the way it works. Sorry. There was a fire in the rafters, the upper, basically the roof of the arena where the Raptors play. And it was a speaker's fire, okay? So it was a fire in the roof. Now, the thing is that the rapture symbolized the rapture. We know God revealed back in 2018 through his big picture of signs, which is only being explained on this channel, that the rapture will be on a Pentecost. Specifically, it will be on Pentecost in the calendar that watches for new moons on May 27th, 2029. Okay? And by the way, the reason for the prediction that is being explained in this video, that is from God, is to prove the controversial things that I am saying. Okay? And so make no mistake, I know far better than anyone the reason and purpose for this prediction. What I'm saying is that the Raptors, for example, symbolize, let's just say that I'm going to leave that not in the league of the other controversial things. This isn't a controversial thing. The date of the rapture. I do believe that it will be on the Pentecost in 2029. I'm 100% certain, you could say, okay, because of the signs. But I'm not going to put that in the league of the other controversial things, such as the identity of the Antichrist or what the mark of the Antichrist is, etc. Or how much time we have left, when the second coming is. That's all, it's all proven through God's true big picture of signs. patterns and connections, which is only being explained on this channel. And this big picture of signs, patterns, and connections will be proven to be true when the prediction comes to pass. Okay? And that's the purpose of this prediction. It isn't for you to go, oh, cool, you were able to predict this in advance. That's really neat. Thanks a lot. That was entertaining. No, my friend, that's not at all the reason for this prediction that is from God. It is to prove the things that I am saying. This is how prophecy works. The Bible is 1/3 prophecy for the purpose of God proving it. God is proving these controversial things through this prediction. So, when the prediction comes to pass, the wise person will know they need to watch every minute of every video, because that's the purpose of this prediction, is to have you know that this is God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which proves the controversial things that you need to know. Okay? That's the reason for this video. To not appreciate this is to not appreciate this prediction from God or this video or video channel. You might as well turn the video off now. You are wasting your time. If you are someone who is certain that King Charles is the Antichrist, for example, or whatever, and you'll not change your mind, or you're certain that you are a quote-unquote spiritual person and Jesus had some good things to say and he went to India and became an enlightened master, I mean, turn off the video now. You're wasting your time, okay? This is to prove, well, for one thing, the righteous Christian God of the Bible, not your interpretation of Jesus. If you're a Muslim or a New Ager, quote-unquote spiritual person, no, your interpretation of Jesus is not true. It's nothing to do with the Jesus of the Bible. So what are you talking about? You just created a Jesus in your own imagination through the brainwashing of the culture that you're involved with. Okay? Anyway, it'll also prove, like I'm saying, the controversial things, and that's the purpose of the prediction. And so don't waste your time if you're not going to change your mind about anything, because it's not even about changing your mind. These things are fact when the prediction comes to pass. It's not a debate anymore. That's the point. Case closed. These things are not up for debate. Okay? When the prediction comes to pass. I'm serious. These things it's end of discussion. Pope Francis is the first Antichrist of the two, and Barack Obama is the second. Stop with the Antichrist guessing game when the prediction comes to pass. The evangelicals love to play the Antichrist guessing game. And they have conveniently forgotten that there wouldn't have been a Protestant Reformation without the knowledge that the Pope is the Antichrist. It's so absurd. But they get this from their false heretical interpretation of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, which I explained in another video, so I'm not going to say it again. So anyway, enough. So the final score between the two teams in this game added up to 222. And that made it clear to me at the time that this was a rapture sign, because we have the fire in the rafters. Because on Pentecost, the first one, fire and smoke came down on Mount Sinai. The first Pentecost of the church age, tongues of fire came down on the disciples in the upper room, as in the rafters, the roof of the arena. And that's why this is just God confirming that the rapture will be on a Pentecost, okay? And I know which one it is. It's the one in 2029, shortly after Obama becomes the president again, okay? But the thing is that this game was exactly 2 years and 2 months. This game that added up to 222, this basketball game, was 2 years and 2 months after Kobe Bryant's death. Okay? But this is also 18 plus 8 months, which gives us the 188 again, like I mentioned. It's also 26 months, and it's the 26th of the months. Anyway, also, the mark of the Antichrist in God's signs is symbolized by the number 22. Because the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist, described in the book of Ezekiel, would have been a Tav mark. And a Tav is the last and 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And the mark of the Antichrist is described in the last and 22nd book out of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. But also the mark of the Antichrist changes a person's chromosomes. And a chromosome has 2 arms, and they come in pairs. So 2 and 2. Well, why is that relevant to Kobe Bryant? Well, a few reasons. One, it's the basketball president we are talking about that is the Antichrist. But also, Kobe in Hebrew sounds like COVID. This was a viral thing at the time, too, after he died. Because he died right at the beginning of the CVD disease. And so people were commenting on the internet how his name, when you say it in Hebrew, with the Hebrew letters, it's COVID. But what also confirms this is not only his record-scoring game, by the way, in his 666th game, which I already mentioned. And again, the mark of the Antichrist's number is 666 in Bible prophecy. But also he died in a helicopter crash. Why is that important? Well, for 2 reasons. One, and by the way, the helicopter departed at 9 a.m. and there were 9 deaths. And God pairs 9 and 22. Forgot that. Wow. This just confirms this 2 years, 2 months connections to the game that scored 2-2-2, which is a Rapture's game, which into the second coming and the Rapture. Okay, so 9 and 22 are paired because it's Ezekiel chapter 9 that describes the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist. Now, the helicopter is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist, the CVD disease SHOT, because God is using helicopters in his signs to symbolize the dragon in Bible prophecy. And specifically their tails. Not that Kobe Bryant's helicopter had anything significant happen to its tail. I don't recall that being any part of the story. But just in general, there are many, many helicopter signs that God's used, involving also specifically the tail. Because in the prophecy, this red dragon sweeps 1/3 of the stars down with his tail. Speaking of this connection to the 3rd Blue Jays win on the day of the perihelion of the 3rd interstellar comet. Oh, wow. The 1/3 of the stars with the dragon. No kidding. Whoa. And as I'll talk about, this 3rd wind and 3rd interstellar object perihelion is 3 days after a prophetic helicopter crash, which I'm going to get to in a minute. Well, anyway, helicopters are again symbolic of the dragon, okay? Just they also by the way, look like dragonflies. And God used the dragonfly sign, by the way, in his signs in the past. It was a major sign, actually. There was an invasion of a massive swarm of dragonflies from the ocean in the 6th state. No. Anyway, whatever. I'm getting off subject. Sorry. That's another subject. And anyway, so it's the red dragon that symbolizes the Antichrist in Bible prophecy, right? Well, also, these helicopters have in their rotor blades an X, usually. It's an X, right? And the X is the Tav, which is, like I said a minute ago, the 22nd letter. And speaking of the 2 years and 2 months, we have the Tav helicopter crash, X, 2 years and 2 months. I just realized that just now. Yeah. Always happens when you're going through the information. New information gets revealed as you go, as it occurs to you. So yeah, the X helicopter blade connects with 2 years and 2 months. And X's are the Tav, 22nd letter, which makes it symbolic of the mark. So God is using these X's, including, for example, you might have thought of it already, Elon Musk's purchase of X for $44 billion, because the 44th president is the Antichrist. But you know what's interesting? That day that he bought that it was confirmed that he bought it for $44 billion was the very same day that the 44th president delivered an anti-free speech at the headquarters of the censorship industry, Stanford University. He was talking about the need to limit free speech on the day that the 44th president was, on the day that Musk bought the X platform for $44 billion because he believes in free speech. And what's the biggest thing about the free speech that was censored? Information about the mark of the Antichrist, which was, and I mean that literally, the CVD shot, the X. Now, I'm just going to repeat myself very calmly here. I know far better than you and anyone the reason and purpose for this prediction. It's to prove what I have just said. The thing is the mark of the Antichrist in its current form. It did not need an additional technology to go with it. Did not need a false form of religious worship to go with it. In fact, for those who are wise, it did come with a form of false religious worship. It does not need a supposed new age of dispensation after supposedly all quote-unquote Christians will be raptured. In fact, one of the main reasons why the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians already took the mark of the Antichrist is it is in fact judgment for this particular doctrine of dispensationalism, which is the package that free grace and cheap grace, or once saved, always saved, comes in. A close cousin to sovereign grace, Reformed theology, which comes in the package of Calvinism. God hates this. It's the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day, and I'll repeat it. I know far better than you the purpose of this prediction. And God has overwhelmingly identified precisely what the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day is that Jesus said he hates twice in the book of Revelation, meant for our time. Okay? And is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those that teach it have the works that are a product of this doctrine. Now, before I get off subject anymore about doctrine, if you are a Christian, the most important video for you on this channel, arguably, is the 23 church signs video. Okay? So I'm just going to leave it at that, because I also repeat myself so many other times in the other videos, and we need to get going. Okay, so by the way, the game was evacuated, and then they came back and finished the game. It was an evacuation, which is what the rapture will be. So the Raptors game was evacuated, which hints at the rapture evacuation of God's faithful. It was fire in the rafters as in the tongues of fire that came down on Pentecost in the upper room, because the rapture will be on a Pentecost. So that's the precedent here. Now, given this is a more amazing confirmation for what I said earlier, or explained earlier, about how the Blue Jays connect to the Raptors with 100, and the Blue Jays win will be 144 weeks to the coming plane crash with by a bird strike against the Blue Jays, the birds. Because again, 144 symbolizes the rapture. But this here is another rapture sign involving the Raptors. So that's just more confirmation, okay? Now, yes, now this is the crazy thing here. The Raptors won the NBA Finals on June 13th, 2019, exactly 333 weeks before it is predicted that the Blue Jays will win their third World Series after they win 3 games in a row on the same day that the third interstellar object reaches perihelion. This is so amazing. It's so profound. And again, this date connects with 144 weeks, which is rapture symbolism. So we've got the Raptors connecting exactly 333 weeks to the third Blue Jays win, which connects with 144, which is rapture symbolism, to the bird strike, plane crash. By the way, that plane will crash into a Major League Baseball stadium. Another reason for the Blue Jays here. Yes, the plane will crash into Busch Stadium in the area code 314 in St. Louis. And that's because of the burning bush in Exodus 3:14. Okay? Yeah. Also, it'll be in the outfield of the stadium. And Paul Simon sang Mrs. Robinson in the outfield of Yankee Stadium after Joe DiMaggio died, because the song has the lyric in it about Joe DiMaggio. And it is Mrs. Michelle Robinson Obama who will be brought in an emergency after the death of Gavin Newsom in the plane crash due to a bird strike into the outfield of the baseball stadium. Okay. Just a reminder here, we are still October 26th, okay? The first of the 3 games that the Jays are predicted to win in a row will be on October 27th. So I'm still talking about the Jays winning. I'm going to talk about the Jays winning 3 games in a row right here, okay? This proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, okay? It's not just that the Jays are going to win their 3rd World Series. I'm not making this prediction when the Jays have already won 3 games and they just need to win 1 more game, okay? They still need to win 3 games, and I'm predicting they'll win 3 games in a row. That's a huge prediction. Furthermore, I predicted that they would win in Game 5 way back before they even beat the Yankees, all right? Now, if you had a chance to read all of the Blue Jays emails, this is stunning. As I explained earlier, the 3 3-run home runs in Jays playoff history that won each of the 3 types of playoffs, okay? The 3-run home run by Judge in Game 3, the Yankees game I mentioned, which is when I recognized the Jays would win their 3rd World Series, okay? And I recognized it would be in Game 5. That was a 3-run home run that Judge hit. I explained all of this earlier. Okay. So the series is currently tied at 1-1, as I mentioned earlier, which means that the Jays will win 3 games in a row to win their 3rd World Series. And that's amazing because that'll be a part of the story. And it's for the purpose of gods to point to one thing, the 3rd interstellar object. It's just going to highlight it even more. The news will be talking about the Jays win 3 games in a row to win their 3rd World Series. That's going to be a headline, all right? And all of that will serve to point to the perihelion of the 3rd interstellar object that will hit Earth, because an asteroid will hit Earth in 2030, as I'll explain. Now, again, this World Series win, the 3rd one, after they are predicted to win 3 games in a row, will be exactly 333 weeks after the Raptors win, the last time that Toronto won a major championship. Okay? Stunning. Amazing. Yeah. Obama attended Game 2, which was next to the Tower of Babel, the CN Tower in the Tower of Babel city, in the Tower of Babel country. Obama is equal to number 23, which isn't a country. And the Antichrist, lowercase a Antichrist-like Prime Minister even said that Canada is the first post-national nation. The Prime Minister even said that it's not a nation because they wickedly made it so that it isn't a nation. But it's all spiritual. And the reason they do that, the reason why they are doing this, and when I mean they, I mean the left, which works for Satan, to their nations, led by feminine culture, feminized culture, is so that, well, if you think like a communist, you know what's going on. Whether the useful idiots, as Stalin called them, know it or not, the communists know that this is the way you bring down the nation. You need to change the culture from within. The communists have known this for many decades after the violent revolutions didn't really work. And they knew it wouldn't work on America. They needed to infiltrate the culture from within. And so what you do is you infiltrate the institutions with communism and radical left socialist people, including even the church, all of the institutions, but especially the media and the government. And you, anyway, my point is that when you make a nation no longer a nation, it makes the people, the indigenous population, not feeling like they are part of that nation anymore, which reduces the nationalism and identity, national identity, which is in the way of communism. So it's all strategic. right? The reason why they've flooded Canada, I mean, what's the statistic? In the last 5 years, 20% of Canada was brought in and is not born in Canada, or something like that. It's absurd, but it's truly sick. And I have nothing against people from other countries. It's just sick how the nation of Canada was ruined. And you can't have a country that's a Tower of Babel. It's just Canada's not a country anymore. It's not about racism or xenophobia, which is what they use to shut people that criticize the immigration down, right? It's another communist tactic to call people names when they disagree with you, right? You can't drive through Toronto anymore because you brought in immigrants from all over the world that don't have the same culture and politeness and courtesy, and it's just a chaotic drive through the highway through Toronto. You can't do it anymore. Just for example, right? Because it's a Tower of Babel. So a nation's capital is measured in three ways. Natural resources, that's one factor that makes a nation wealthy. Another factor is the size of the workforce. You look at India and China, who have become rich based on their numbers of people, okay? Which has allowed them to make the factories to make the things for the world, right? And third is social capital, which the West was rich in. This includes things like the rule of law, human rights, etc. And all of that was a product of Christianity. But now that the West has done away with Christianity, which is the origin of equal rights, with people being created in the image of God, what you have is the vacuum inevitably replaced with communism. Socialism is inevitable. When you remove God from the society, that's what inevitably, it's like a law of the universe. It's what happens. And so that's why you're having what we see today, which is another way to look at it, is a vase of cut flowers. When you cut the flowers from their source, they look alive for quite a while afterwards. They die slowly, but then they do die. And that's the case with Western civilization. For the last few decades, it's been a cut flowers. It's dead. It just doesn't look like it's dead right away. But it is about to collapse. Okay? And it is because of the left and the feminization of culture. And the doing away with Christianity. And so anyway, my point is that you have social capital, and a measure and an indicator of that is you can kind of get an idea of the level of social capital of a society from simple things such as the ability of the people to line up when they're waiting for something. Now, if you go to a country like Brazil, and you're in the Amazon or something, I went to an ATM there, and there were other people waiting for the ATM, like a lot. And they're right up next to you. Like literally, they're breathing on your neck because they're afraid that the other person is going to get ahead of them. They don't have the ability to line up. It's the same in China. So China isn't rich in social capital. I mean, it's not as poor as other nations, I suppose you could say. There are even worse nations. But if you go to, for example, the airport and you want to speak to the girl at the desk of your airline, there's no lineup. You have to push your way. You have to be aggressive to make sure you get responded to in an appropriate, because when there's a lot of people waiting, they don't line up. Okay? This is just an example. Okay, but what happens when you import these people into a country or a city and make it a Tower of Babel? Well, you get chaos on the highways. You get their driving skills. They don't just start driving like Canadians used to drive. And it's an aggressive thing where it's for yourself. You're in it for yourself, Okay, so I went off subject there, but we are talking about Toronto, so I guess that was inevitable that I got into that subject. And again, it's interesting that they're wearing this jacket that even symbolizes that they're from the Tower of Babel, because they got every nation listed on the back of the jacket after they hit a home run. All right. So, and again, that's because Canada isn't a nation. If you want to be proud that a nation is not a nation, okay, fine, but that makes no sense. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. Like, you know, we're proud that it's a nation that's not a nation. Okay, all right, good luck. So if you had a chance, okay, what was I saying here? So Obama attended Game 2 at the Tower of Babel City. His number is 23. Game 2 is plus 333 weeks to the predicted third World Series win. That's another 23, which hints at Obama. Okay, so as I said here, that's it. This is all about for revealing Obama. The plane crash bird strike will lead to Obama, the basketball president. So God is using all of these Toronto signs here, as I'm explaining, to communicate what's happening. Barack Obama will become the president again through this bird strike plane crash. And this again connects all the way back to when Obama was at the commencement speech at the Air Force when a plane crashed, right after it flew over him. But it connects back to the other Toronto game which he attended and all that. Okay, it's amazing. It's all about identifying Obama, the basketball president, which is why the Raptors are tied to this predicted Blue Jays World Series win. Okay, now on October 26th, we have this U.S. Navy helicopter crash in the South China Sea and a fighter jet crash in the South China Sea. And they crashed on the same day, 30 minutes apart. And I don't know if there is a reason. There's not stated any reason why. And so it could just be a coincidence. Maybe it was some weather, but why would weather cause two crashes? Anyway, this happened, and this is on this October 26th date. Now, this October 26th date is exactly 69 months, as we said earlier, after Kobe Bryant's helicopter crash. So this helicopter crash is exactly 69 months after Kobe Bryant's helicopter crash. And again, 6 divided by 9 is 0.666. But also it hints at the most central prophecy in the Bible regarding the period of the Antichrist, this 69 weeks in in the book of Daniel. Okay? All right. Okay, so going down, these planes went down. This helicopter and plane went down in the South China Sea. And this hints at the red dragon in Bible prophecy that is thrown down from heaven to earth. Again, as I explained, helicopters symbolize the dragon. And the dragon sweeps a third of the stars down, and there was 3 people in the helicopter. And they crashed 30 minutes apart. And as I'm about to explain, 3 days before the predicted Blue Jays' third win after 3 wins in a row, which connects to a plane crash, which will be triggered by a bird strike. The story is about how the crashes were 30 minutes apart. October 26th is 3 days before the Blue Jays' third World Series win, predicted anyway, which will point to the bird strike crash 144 weeks later. And again, this is amazing too, because the helicopter crash is 300 weeks after Kobe Bryant's helicopter crash. And again, this helicopter crash on October 26th had 3 people in it, and it's 3 days before the third World Series win and the third interstellar object. Helicopters symbolize the dragon who sweeps with his tail a third of the stars, and we have the 300 weeks connection to the other helicopter crash. So 300 weeks and then 3 days. I should say 300 weeks to the 3 people in the helicopter crash, 30 minutes before the other crash, and also 3 days before the Blue Jays predicted third win after 3 games, and the perihelion of the third interstellar comet. Okay, it's an FA-18, which is 6 + 6 + 6. Super Hornet fighter assigned to the Fighting Redcocks of Strike Fighter Squadron 22. Okay, so Redcock, since it's Red Dragon, it's a helicopter also. The other one is anyway. 22 hints at the mark, as I explained. The number 22 symbolizes the mark. And F-18 hints at 6 + 6 + 6. Now, incidentally, this plane crashed at 3:15 p.m. and at 3:15 a.m. on the 1st of the year, this year, was the crash of the SUV that killed people in the 6 + 6 + 6th state in New Orleans. The terrorist that used the Ford Lightning truck. Okay? Okay. Okay, now it's exactly 69 months, but it's also exactly 300 weeks, and it doesn't have to be that way. Kobe Bryant's crash is exactly 69 months, but it's also exactly 300 weeks, and it doesn't have to be that. An exact month connection doesn't have to be an exact week connection, let alone one with 2 zeros in it, let alone one that's prophetic or relevant, because it connects to the helicopter crash with 3 people in it 30 minutes before the other crash, and then 3 days before the Blue Jays World Series third win. Now, 2 crashes on October 26th, plus 3 days to the Jays' third win after 3 wins in a row, that hints at 23 and Obama. Okay? The helicopter is an MH-60, which hints at 2 times 30 and also 23. The 69 months is also 23 + 23 + 23, and God repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. So the helicopter crash of Kobe's is 23 + 23 + 23 months to the MH-60, which hints at 2 times 30 and 23. But also then the 2 crashes are 3 days to the third win for the Jays, which is another 23. Now, the third interstellar object is 33 tons, and currently, because it's close to the sun, being hit with 33 gigawatts of solar radiation. That's just stunning. Okay. It just this is more and more and more, right? So the third interstellar stellar's object, the perihelion for the third interstellar object, when it's going by the sun, will be being hit with 33 gigawatts of solar radiation, and it's 33 tons. And it'll be on the day that the Blue Jays are predicted to win their third World Series win, after winning 3 games. Now, the helicopter and the plane were from the USS Nimitz aircraft carrier. And this Nimitz hints at ballroom blitz. Furthermore, the USS Nimitz is stationed in Washington, D.C. And the ballroom that Trump is constructing is in Washington, D.C. The media, and a few of the headlines, called it the ballroom blitz. Okay? It's an amazing thing. There's a famous song, The Ballroom Blitz, but that's all explained in another video. But the Nimitz hints at this. It's a stunning thing. And also the Nimitz is stationed in Washington. And as I'm about to explain, the crash of the planes and the helicopter from the Nimitz, and the helicopter had 3 people on it, and they crashed 30 minutes apart, was 3 plus 3 days after Trump began demolition, the ballroom blitz for the ballroom. As I wrote, surely the Jays' third World Series win will also be pointing to the third interstellar object. Well, I've been saying that for a while now, but it took a while for, to realize that, it didn't all come at once. Actually, it just occurred to me that their third win, and that's predicted to be, their third World Series win that's predicted to be on the 29th, be the day of the perihelion of the third interstellar object. Okay. And again, this date is predicted to be exactly 144 weeks before this plane crash in the 24th state, Missouri. Okay, due to a bird strike into a baseball stadium, and this is a baseball game with birds, Blue Jays, 144 weeks to the predicted plane crash in the 24th state, and that in turn will be exactly 240.00% of a calendar year before December 26th, 2030, which is the date it's predicted that the asteroid will hit Earth. And or, by the way, there will be a solar storm that will knock out the power grid. But I'm leaning towards the asteroid. But it's funny, God is using both. So it's not quite clear. There's a case to be made for both. Anyway, this is stunning, though. Also, by the way, 24 is 2 times 12. The plane crash will be on the state next to the Gateway Arch in St. Louis, which began construction on the date 2/12, which is why this connection here involving the number 24, 2 times 12. The date the construction began for the Gateway Arch was 1 year, 8 months, and 8 days before the birth of Kamala Harris. Okay? And she is predicted to die in this plane crash next to the Gateway Arch. Again, 188, which is what 1 year, 8 months, and 8 days hints at, is the word for woe exclamation mark, used in the Bible in the context of extreme judgment from God. Okay, now this predicted asteroid hit of Earth, of the world, as in World Series. By the way, that's why the third interstellar object, one reason. It's hinting at the year 30. But this date is, or will be, exactly 131 months after Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter crash, which incident COVID, as I explained. And G131 in the Greek concordance is the word for blood disease. That's a stunning thing, this connection. Because I did already establish that COVID is about CVD disease. I mean, he crashed right at the beginning of the CVD disease. And again, like I said, the helicopter is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist and all that, which gives a person blood disease. That's why it's 131 months, exact connection. God was communicating that the crash of Kobe Bryant connects to back at the time of Kobe Bryant's crash, God was communicating or revealing the date of the crash of the asteroid on Earth. By the way, Kobe Bryant died, the helicopter crash died on a mountain because of the theme in the Bible of the high places. The word Bama is Hebrew for high place. But the asteroid, of course, will come down from the sky, a high place. The movie Wayne's World, as in the world being hit by an asteroid, was released 404 months and 4 plus 4 plus 4 days before the Nimitz sign with the two aircraft. Okay? Nimitz Ballroom Blitz. Okay. The 30 minutes also, the three people in the helicopter 30 minutes before the next aircraft crash hints at the year 30. And the asteroid will hit the sea in 2030, which is where the aircraft crashed into the sea, which is why the aircraft crashed into the sea, right? That's why the aircraft crashed into the sea, because we already know from other signs that the asteroid will hit the ocean and cause tsunamis, etc. But that'll be in 2030, which is why the 30 minutes in between these two crashes into the sea. Okay, here we have news on the same day, October 26th, of a New York Jets player who died, as in the jets that crashed on this day, and the jet that will crash 144 weeks and 3 days after this. 3 people crashed in a helicopter 30 minutes before the other crash, before the jet crashed. Well, okay, so this player was born on the date 113, and he died at 41 years old. Just like Kobe Bryant, by the way. But that's the story, right? And Paul Simon was born on the date 1013 in 41. Now, another thing too, the news of Simon's fall is predicted to be on October 31st, 5 days after these crashes and falls. And there was 5 people rescued, 3 in the helicopter, 2 in the jet. Yeah. That's interesting. That's amazing too. So this does actually connect to the day Simon will die. And we have proof of this through the jets here. The guy's name is Nick, one of countless Nicks in God's signs that hint at the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day that Jesus said he hates and is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine, which is the vast majority of the American church, including and especially the evangelicals. And God reproves whom he loves, as it says in the letter addressed to the evangelical church, the Church of Laodicea, that thinks that it is in need of nothing, but does not realize that it is blind, poor, pitiable, and naked, and that Jesus is knocking at the door, meaning that he's not inside this church, and is lukewarm, and because of it, Jesus wants to vomit it out of his mouth. That church, that's the American evangelical church, the last of the 7 churches. Many people, including myself, believe that the 7 churches' letters are representative of the 7 stages of church history. The last stage being the modern evangelical church, which doesn't only, of course, include American churches, but the American culture of church going around the world today. Because it's pretty much the same everywhere. And they're all Laodiceans, most of them. You go into one of these churches and you ask what they do nothing. One of the primary, you could argue the primary reason for coming together is to encourage each other in their ministries and their works. But today, evangelicals have a phobia regarding works because of their false doctrine. But enough of that. Watch the 23 Church Signs video on this channel. Okay, so Mike Myers is Canadian in this movie, Wayne's World, but that's just, my friend pointed it out. He's an American because he's famous for being a Canadian. It's not like other Canadians that are not really known for being Canadian as much, but he's one of these Canadians that's proud to be Canadian for some reason. And, I don't think he's even moved to the States permanently after he became famous. So 2 aircraft crashed into the sea 30 minutes apart because the coming asteroid hit into the sea. I wrote this wrong, badly. Anyway, the coming asteroid hit into the sea will be in 2030, which is why the 2 aircraft crashed 30 minutes apart, 2030. And the reason why I mentioned Myers being Canadian is because we're talking about the Toronto Blue Jays. That's why. Well, now this could be an interesting thing here. I'll have to think about more, but Trudeau was in the news on the same day. Well, whatever. But he's the 23rd Prime Minister in the 44th Parliament, a pairing of 23 and 44, which, as I mentioned earlier, identifies the Antichrist. Yeah. He's part of this Nixon prophecy. Nixon at a state dinner in Ottawa toasted to the Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, to the future Prime Minister of Canada, referring to Justin Trudeau, who was at the time 4 months old. And then 44 years later, 44 years to the month, the same month of the year, Trudeau attended a state dinner in which the 44th president mentioned the Nixon prophecy. In other words, it was to identify the Antichrist, the 44th president, who wore number 23, which is why Trudeau was the 23rd Prime Minister in the 44th Parliament. The 44th Parliament was the prophetic one that involved the CVD disease and the Emergencies Act, the one that was extremely Antichrist, as I'll explain in another video. The news of the third interstellar object right now is that astronomers are awaiting with bated breath because of the government shutdown for images of the probe near Mars, the red planet. This coincides with the crash of the aircraft, including a helicopter, into the South China Sea, which is symbolic of the red dragon, if I didn't mention that earlier. So the helicopter symbolized the dragon, but it's this crash into the South China Sea, and China in God's signs is symbolic of the red dragon in Bible prophecy. So it's like a double dragon confirmation here, a double second witness. But anyway, you have a third witness here because, as I said, this connects the perihelion of the third interstellar object is 3 days after these crashes into the South China Sea, involving 3 in the helicopter, 30 minutes before the other one. But the news at this time, at this same time, is about Mars in regards to the third interstellar object, because they're waiting for the images from the probe around Mars, the red planet. And by the way, the God used that helicopter on the red planet, the NASA helicopter, for this same symbolism, including when it landed on the planet, as in the red dragon thrown from heaven to earth. The second heaven is outer space. So when the helicopter, which is a dragon, lands on the planet Mars, the red planet, it's symbolic of the red dragon being thrown down from heaven to earth. The crash of the military helicopter and plane on January 29th at 300 feet altitude, as the plane was making for runway 33, is exactly 3 plus 3 plus 3 months before the predicted third Jays win on the day of the third interstellar object will be at perihelion. 3 people were in the U.S. military helicopter. 4 times 4 times 4 people were in the plane. So what I'm talking about here is the collision on January 29th, right, with the military helicopter outside of the Reagan Airport in Washington with the commercial jet passenger plane. Okay, I'll just repeat it. You remember now this crash. And the story of that crash was about the 300 feet. That was the main thing about the story, right? Because the helicopter was not supposed to be at this altitude. And the incompetence of the incident was due to the fact that she was a woman, which was politically incorrect to talk about at the time. And it's not just because she was a woman, but because it would have been because of affirmative action that she got that job as the pilot. That was the real thing. Anyway, but the controversy was that, and she was being told to move, and she wouldn't. Okay, so it was all about the altitude, which was 300 feet, and the plane was coming in for runway 33, and the helicopter had 3 people, and this was exactly, or is exactly, 3 + 3 + 3 months before the Jays are predicted to win their 3rd World Series after winning 3 games in a row, and the perihelion of the 3rd interstellar object. Like I said, 3 people were in the helicopter that crashed in Washington. It's also 3 people in the helicopter in the South China Sea, to not get confused, okay? But 3 people were also in this helicopter, but in the plane, the passenger plane, it was 4 × 4 × 4 people, which entered the 44th president in Washington in his 3rd term. This will be 3 days after the helicopter. So, the 3rd interstellar object, perihelion, and the 3rd Jays win will be 3 days after the helicopter with 3 people, and a plane crashed into the sea just after 3 p.m., 30 minutes apart. Oh, and by the way, the plane crash and the helicopter crash in January was also into the sea. It was also in the ocean. No, it was in the river, sorry. Whether that river is a mix of seawater and fresh water, I don't know. Could be. Anyway, you see this pattern of 3 here, okay? And it was 3 p.m. too, just after 3 p.m., 30 minutes apart. Now, the crash in January was at 8:47 p.m., which since at 9/11, because the first plane struck the first tower at 8:46 a.m. And it was the World Trade Center, which since at the coming asteroid hit of the world, judgment on the world. Now, 8:46 a.m. is why the Black Lives Matter protests kneeled for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Because Revelation 9/11 hinted at, among other things, Revelation 9/11, which is about the rise of King Apollyon from the bottomless pit, Satan. And so their kneeling in these Antichrist protests was in fact symbolic of kneeling to Satan. And I mean it literally. Anyone that kneeled in these protests was kneeling to Satan. I don't care if you call yourself a quote-unquote Christian. There is no such thing as a person on the left that is a Christian. That's an oxymoron. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I mean, that's like the truth, right? You cannot be on today's left and still be a quote-unquote Christian. It's black and white. If you don't know that, God help you. I don't have time maybe right now to explain it. I've explained it probably in other videos. I mean, anyone that ever voted Democrat since the 1960s needs to repent. And you should know why, and if you don't, think about it. Think hard. Because you are in trouble. I'm trying to warn you. The 3rd interstellar object, I'll give you a clue. Unborn babies. The 3rd interstellar object is said to be quote-unquote Manhattan-sized. The third interstellar object will be at perihelion on the same day that the Jays are predicted to win the third World Series after winning 3 games in a row. Okay, so this is Manhattan-sized here. Let's see. Yeah, this is important. The third interstellar object is said to be Manhattan-sized. Well, that hints at 9/11, obviously. The third interstellar object and the World Trade Center, the asteroid hitting the world. The third in 2030. The third interstellar object will be at perihelion on the same day that the Jays are predicted to win their third World Series after winning 3 games in a row. 3 days after the helicopter that had 3 people and plane crashed 30 minutes apart. The third interstellar object will be at perihelion on the day that the Blue Jays are predicted to win their third World Series in a row after winning 3 games in a row, exactly 3 plus 3 plus 3 months after the helicopter and plane crashed at 300 feet as the plane was approaching runway 33, and the helicopter also had 3 people. The 2 planes crashed in Washington, which symbolizes America, at 8:47 p.m., which gives us 9/11, hence the Manhattan-sized interstellar object. On 9/11, the first of the 2 planes crashed at 8:46 a.m. Through the events on 9/11, God pointed to George Washington, who set the precedent of not serving a 3rd term because he did not want to become a king. And speaking of that, the crash here. Let's see. At well, yeah. The plane. Let's see. It was 2 aircraft that crashed 30 minutes apart. Right? That gave us a 23, which is Obama. It also hinted at 2030. Okay, now that day, October 26th, was 4 plus 4 days after the No Kings protest, which hints at the Antichrist king, Obama. See, everything the left does is an inverse of the truth. Everything they do and say and complain about and protest, they are the exact ones that are doing it. They're like children. When you accuse a child who has stolen cookies from the cookie jar, what do? They point at you and go, no, you stole the cookies. You know, they point the finger at someone else or the person accusing them. And that's the Democrats. That's the left today. But they're not just children. They're not innocent. They're insidious. But this is because Satan is insidious. And it's this pattern. This is what Satan does. He doesn't just do bad things. He inverts things. His thing is to do the flip opposite of the truth. So he's always inverting things, right? And so when the left accuses, for example, Trump of being a king, they are the ones that will be and are in support of a king, an emperor, a dictator, Barack Obama. I mean, they supported a dictatorship, accusing Trump of being no, the Biden administration was a dictatorship. It was authoritarian, clamping down on free speech and things like this. It's all the exact opposite. It's always the inverse. It's just amazing to watch. And it's also prophetic. It's also from God, including in this case, example right here. The 3 crew in the helicopter crash on October 26th that was rescued, okay, there were 3 in the crew. These 3 crew crashed 30 minutes before the plane crashed, which had 2 crew that was rescued. This hints at 2030, right? As I mentioned, 2 crashes 30 minutes apart. 3 crew in 30 minutes also hints at 3 days to the third interstellar object's perihelion on the day the Jays are predicted to win their 3rd World Series after winning 3 games in a row. The Fighting Redcocks of the Strike Fighter Squadron 22, okay, that's what is in the news article. The fighter jet with a crew of 2 from Squadron 22 hints at Washington, who was born on the date 2/22. And this connects to the helicopter and plane crash in Washington. But also, it, like I said earlier, was 2 years and... No. The plane crash on January 29th, 2025. The helicopter and plane crashed at 300 feet as it was approaching runway 33 at Reagan Airport. This was 3 + 3 + 3 days after the inauguration was held indoors because of cold weather that hadn't happened since the inauguration of Reagan, the 40th president, the governor of California, 44 years earlier. Okay, 40th president, 44 years earlier. On October 26, 2025, the 40th governor of California, Gavin Newsom, confirmed that he is considering running for president in 2028 in a morning news show, I believe. 44 plus 4 years after 2028 will be after the 40th president and governor of California, Reagan, ran for president. I'm just going to repeat that, okay? This is amazing. The 40th governor of California is Gavin Newsom. The 40th president is Reagan, who was the governor of California. And Gavin Newsom is now saying is considering running for president. This is what it's all about here. The reason for the plane crash and helicopter crash on October 26th, as I'm explaining, is to confirm that the predicted plane crash that connects with 3 days and 144 weeks, as I've explained, will involve Gavin Newsom. And that's why now God is confirming all of this through this news story about Gavin Newsom, the 40th governor of California, confirming he is considering running for the president. Okay? So, on October 26th, 2025, was the same day as the helicopter and plane crashed into the ocean. The helicopter and plane were with the USS Nimitz, which is stationed in Washington, D.C. This was 3 + 3 days after Trump's Ballroom Blitz demolition began. Nimitz Ballroom Blitz. 3s again. The plane crashed 30 minutes after the helicopter crashed with its crew of 3. And this is 3 days before the perihelion of the third interstellar object and predicted third World Series win for the Blue Jays after they are predicted to beat Los Angeles 3 games in a row, which will be exactly 144 weeks before Newsom's predicted plane crash due to a bird strike as he's running for president in Washington. He is predicted to be returning from Washington at the time of his plane crash to Los Angeles, which is why the Jays will beat Los Angeles, which will clear the way for the 44th president to serve a 3rd term. The third interstellar object, perihelion, and the Jays' predicted 3rd World Series win after winning a predicted 3 games in a row hints at the asteroid that will hit the world, as in World Series, in 2030. And this third interstellar object, perihelion, and predicted 3rd Jays World Series win, after winning 3 games in a row, will be exactly 3 + 3 + 3 months after the plane crash of a helicopter that had a crew of 3, and the plane crash with 4 × 4 × 4 people at 300 feet as it was approaching runway 33 at Reagan Airport, which was 3 + 3 + 3 days after the indoor inauguration for the first time since the inauguration of Reagan, the 40th president and governor of California, 44 years prior. See how it all comes together here in this last paragraph of this end of this video, okay? It's so amazing. We've got Reagan through the airport, the Reagan airport, we've got the 40th governor of California, Gavin Newsom, saying he's going to run for president. And Reagan was the 40th president, and he was the governor of California. And we have these connections that point to when Gavin Newsom will die in a plane crash due to a bird strike. As he's returning from Washington, which is where the Nimitz is stationed, where the planes were from the Nimitz, on his way to Los Angeles, which is why the Blue Jays will beat the Los Angeles. The Los Angeles will fall. He will fall on his way to Los Angeles into a baseball stadium. It's amazing. It's amazing. And you know what? You know what? Whoa. Okay. So Gavin Newsom announced he's going to run for president on the day that the 3 in the helicopter crashed 30 minutes before the other plane crash. 3 days after Pope Leo XIV and Charles III met. Gavin Newsom is predicted to crash into Bush Stadium in the area code 314 because of the burning bush in Exodus 3:14. And Leo XIV, or rather Charles III and Leo XIV, hints at the area code 314. And so that 314 sign, when these two men who symbolize the Antichrists but are not the Antichrists, that happened 3 days before Gavin Newsom called he was going to be running for president, and he'll crash in the area code 314. And on that day, 3 days after the Leo XIV and Charles III, was the 3 people on the helicopter that crashed 30 minutes before the other crash, confirming the 3 days connection. Wow. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. Jesus was speaking to quote-unquote Christians when he said this. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. To have faith means to trust in God's promises. Taking action demonstrates trust and fear of the Lord. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Do not be deceived by those on the political left claiming to be quote-unquote Christians. There is no such thing as a Christian on today's political progressive left. Jesus said, "Do not think I have come to abolish or change any bit of the law or the prophets of the Old Testament Bible." In other words, the God of the Old Testament Bible is the exact same God of the New Testament Bible. It is essential that you learn about the God of the Bible and his ways. The God of the Old Testament Bible is looking to see who will fear him, and to fear God is not the same thing as quote-unquote revering or honoring God. Through Christ's ransom payment, a Christian is someone who has been redeemed and freed from slavery to sin and Satan. In response, a true Christian recognizes that their life in this world does not belong to them, and they become a willing slave to Jesus for the sake of the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, Jesus loves you, unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, asteroidprediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.